Welcome, everyone, to the Dominator with Josh Larky. My mic just got unplugged. This is the best start possible that we could have to a podcast like this one. I should sound a little bit better now. Welcome, everyone, in. Today, I am going to be streaming a Best Ball Mania draft on Underdog Fantasy, promo code Underworld. Get that deposit match if you have not signed up yet. As I go through this draft, I will be rapid fire discussing player takes. If you have any players in particular that you want me to discuss, because as you might imagine, it's impossible to tackle 200, 250 players on this stream as a solo practitioner of best ball, put them in the comments. I'll be glancing through the comments. So if you have a certain player that you want me to discuss that I have not discussed, let me know. Hopefully we will be stacking. And hopefully this will be the $1.5 million top prize best ball team. Probably not, but we should never say never. And let's find out how it goes. So let me share my screen. We are going to hop into the lobby for this draft. And it looks like we're waiting on 3 people. So if you're watching this live, folks, you can actually jump into this draft with me. So we'll just give it 1 second. Let everyone join in on the stream. I'm pretty excited for this. I've done, I think, 6 of these already. I believe this will be number 7. And let's kind of see how it goes. I've kind of noticed early on the Jaguars have been a very, very attractive team for me to stack. I think that's probably where I've gotten the most stacks at this point. And I'd say the Jets, where with the Jaguars, you get ETN early, and then almost everybody is late, where Lawrence is going in the 120s. If we, we can just do it this way. If we type in Jacks, you get ETN. I take Kirk in the 5th, Brian Thomas Jr. in the 6th or 7th round, the LSU product that they took at pick 23 overall. We've got Evan Engram, who goes sort of the same range as Thomas. So usually you get one of them. Occasionally you can get both. And then Lawrence, pick 117 for his ADP. That is just way too affordable, in my opinion, for a guy that has a little bit of dual threat upside. Gabe Davis goes at pick 127, so you can basically come back and get Davis. I have so many Jacksonville teams that ended up that way. And let's look at the Jets before this draft gets started. That's one more team that I've had a lot of. I'm willing to take Breece Hall as early as pick 4 or pick 5 if I need to. I think he has a really, really good shot to be the overall RB1 in fantasy football. Garrett Wilson, you kind of get one of those 2 where you start with Hall or Wilson. Big Mike Williams is so cheap, ADP 101. He has a fantasy wide receiver 1 season under his belt in half PPR, which is Underdog's scoring format. Aaron Rodgers, pick 145, essentially free. Their 3rd round pick, Malachi Corley, at pick 170 is essentially free. And then maybe my favorite tight end value right now, Tyler Conklin. Talked about him a lot pre-draft and was like, guys, if the Jets don't take Brock Bowers, Tyler Conklin has 87 targets in 3 straight seasons, and it looks like that's going to happen once again. Pick 186. Consolidated offense right now. They're all really inexpensive. Let's check out how this is going. And for those out there that are wondering what these badges mean, this involves how much you've played. So it looks like, wow. Everyone is a badged player except for T-Swen Sun DPT. Sir, we thank you. We thank you for your bravery going up in a best ball draft against 11 badged players. You can see me right here. Fun guy hates stats. That's a joke. Some people out there think it stands for fun guy hates tats. That is incorrect. I have some tattoos. I do not hate them because I do not hate myself. Life lessons, folks. All right, let's dive in. So we've got pretty much chalk off the board, give or take it. You generally won't see too many crazy things. I'll just tell you who goes in round 1 at this point, sort of in rough ADP order. Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Breece Hall, Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Jahmyr Gibbs. That's kind of the first round at this point. There's not really anybody in this range that I think is a terrible pick. I'll probably end up a little bit overweight on Breece Hall myself, potentially Jamar Chase as well. I think CeeDee Lamb at 102 might be a slight overreaction to what we saw last year, but at the same time, it's like, guys, do you really want to full fade CeeDee Lamb? Probably not with how little's in that receiver room. I have my former coworker, a high-low. It looks like he's picking at pick 8. He took Breece Hall. I think that's an awesome pick. Great work to my good friend and former coworker. We've got Puka Nacua at pick 9. Someone's picking at 10, and then I have the 11th pick. You know what? We're just going to go jet stack. Garrett Wilson at pick 11 pretty much goes in line with ADP. The way that I see it, Garrett Wilson is a high-end target earner. And he's attached to Aaron Rodgers, who has a history of kind of zeroing in on whichever receiver he likes best. That was Jordy Nelson for a while. That was Devontae Adams for a while. And I think it's going to be Garrett Wilson this year. I think people are still a little bit concerned about what happened last year, and I'm just not. I was going to mention one other team I've really liked is stacking the Lions. And we're going to set ourselves up for potential Jets or Lions stacks. I've got Gibbs queued up right now. Let's talk, though, about what just happened at the turn, because I think Yoshi username is an incredible best ball player. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't played with him. Maybe I have. He took Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake London at picks 12 and 13. These are actually two players that I'm struggling to get on board with at current ADP. Let's talk about it. Maybe I will be proved completely wrong during the season. Marvin Harrison Jr. at pick 12. When we look at guys like Jamar Chase, these truly elite receiver prospects like Marvin Harrison, Chase was going in the 4th round of best ball drafts. And then he had issues during the summer with, can he catch the football? Does the NFL football look different from the college football? We all know that's a lot of BS at this point. Jamar Chase is awesome, but his ADP went from round 4 to round 5. As far as I'm aware, that's the earliest a rookie wide receiver had ever gone on Underdog Fantasy. And now we have Harrison going at pick 12. Yes, we've had Puka Nacua, we've had Justin Jefferson, we've had Jamar Chase. However, with Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyler Murray's he's a good NFL quarterback. We like him for fantasy football. I think he's a great quarterback for Marvin Harrison. I think it's going to be just fine. But do I think that's the upper echelon elite quarterback? No, I don't. I think Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I think there's a lot of guys that are better. I think he's kind of in the Trevor Lawrence bucket. I'm not quite sure if I'd rather have Kyler Murray or Trevor Lawrence as my quarterback for a fantasy football wide receiver. He also has Trey McBride. I think there's a probably 25 to 30% chance Trey McBride actually just out targets Marvin Harrison Jr. this year. So that's a little bit of a concern. And then with Drake London, when he and Kyle Pitts have been on the field together, and that's skewed because some people are like, oh my God, but have you seen some of those Drake London games? Yeah, I've seen the Drake London games when Kyle Pitts misses time. When London and Pitts are healthy, same targets per out run, same amount of targets per game, roughly. And Pitts' average depth of target is actually higher than Drake London. Kyle Pitts is actually a better, faster athlete than Drake London. I would rather have Drake London. He's just been much more efficient with his targets than Pitts. But I don't know, man. Kyle Pitts plays tight end. That's a position with a lower bar for fantasy points. The wide receiver bar is much higher. I understand the Kirk Cousins upgrade. If I'm looking right now, we can see that Kyle Pitts' ADP is 61. Drake London's ADP, I believe it's like 15 at this point. 15. Wow. Good memory, Josh. Nice work there. Pat on the back. Yeah, we're not going to draft a lot of Drake London. Unfortunately. Or fortunately. I don't think that's a guy I'm interested in. Looking at some of these other picks, I'm just going to talk about players I have a strong stance on. I'm not going to start reading you 250 players. If you're listening to this podcast, you won't be able to keep up. If you're watching the stream live on the Player Profiler YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, great. Then you can really follow along even better with the actual draft board. If you want to see those individual picks, Kyren Williams went at pick 20. I still think that's too early. His ADP has been falling since the NFL draft. The Rams took Blake Corum in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. And I think that could potentially neuter Kyren Williams' upside. There's a chance Kyren Williams comes back and it's just fine. However, Kyren Williams was a terrible pass blocker last year. Awesome rusher of the football. He was 7th in next-gen stats, rush yards over expected per attempt. Basically, per rush attempt, Kyren Williams, according to next-gen stats, which has player tracking data, was the 7th best running back on a per-touch basis in the NFL, and he had a lot of touches. That's all very, 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 very good. He was one of the 2 or 3 stone worst pass blockers at the running back position. That's where Blake Corum thrives. Blake Corum handled heavy volume at Michigan. He had 20 carries per game in 2022. 20 carries per game in 2022. Tears his meniscus. That's a knee ligament. Or it's in his knee ligament, maybe. I don't know. It's some kind of knee injury. It's a serious knee injury. He has 20 carries a game. He tears it. He comes back in 2023. He plays the full season. And he has 17 carries a game with lower efficiency. I like to think his 2024, he'll be somewhere between the borderline Heisman candidate in 2022, and then just the volume workhorse who wasn't super efficient in 2023. Either way, that's danger for Kyren Williams. And Sean McVay has always kind of leaned towards one running back in particular to get most of the touches. And I think if Kyren Williams' pass blocking struggles continue, he's going to want to protect Matthew Stafford. He's going to give Blake Corum heavy volume. We're back on the clock. We have Jahmyr Gibbs. We have Garrett Wilson. I really like Travis Etienne. I really like Derrick Henry. Because I talked about the Jaguar stacks, we're going to take Etienne just to sort of set up a potential Jaguars stack going on here. So we'll take Etienne here. We probably want to get a second receiver as well with this next pick. I usually like to have 2 receivers through 4 picks when possible. If not, then kind of like at worst, I like to have 2 receivers through 5 picks. The receiver well really starts to dry up. I've noticed in these drafts, people are just so thirsty for receivers and Underdog. You might be like, well, then I'm going to fade the public. I will take my receivers late. And then you realize when you look at the late receivers, there is just nobody good. I'm leaning towards Tank Dell or T. Higgins. Those are kind of my 2 guys I'm looking at right now. I could kind of go either way here. I think we're going to go with T. Higgins simply because Tank Dell got shot. I think he's totally okay, but that at least adds some type of chance. Tank Dell is not okay, so we'll take him there. Let's look at some of the other interesting picks. I'm really curious about what's going to happen with the Texans. So I just talked about how I'm going to take Higgins over Tank Dell. I think Tank Dell is fine. One thing that I do think is interesting, let's pull up the Houston receivers. Nico Collins, ADP 23. Stephon Diggs, ADP 25. Tank Dell, ADP 42. And then we have CJ Stroud, ADP 47. Do I think all 4 of those players hit their ADP? No chance. Does that mean I'm fading them? No. And kind of here's why. So you might be like, well, Josh, how could you not fade some Texans if you don't think all 4 of those Texans pay off? And this is, I think, a really important concept to think about with best ball, especially Underdog, where it's this top-heavy prize structure. You have the week 15, 16, 17 tournament, and the winner of week 17 gets that $1.5 million prize. So the way that I think about it is 2 of these receivers probably get there. And let's say that Nico Collins gets hurt. Would you like Stephon Diggs at ADP 25 and Tank Dell at ADP 42? Of course. If Stephon Diggs gets hurt, would you like Nico Collins and Tank Dell? Of course. The way that I'm viewing the Texans is I'm just rotating who I take, and I'm assuming one of them gets injured during the season, which helps the others. Of course, that might not happen. And if that doesn't happen, then, hey, your Texan stack still could pay off in week 15, 16, or 17, because in a 1-week sample, any of these guys can have a big week. Sure, over the course of the season, maybe you're like, oh, I took Nico Collins at wide receiver 15. He was the wide receiver 21. That's close enough. It's not going to totally nuke your team. You can still get through and have a good team, even if you have a few players early on that slightly underperform. If we can hit on some of those rookies, other upside players later, that can really hit. And trust me, I will spend a lot of time talking about those upside rookies as we move on. Let's scroll through the draft. We're going to be back on the clock in 10 picks. I think another team that I'm going to treat a little bit like I do with the Texans. Let's look at the Bears. We've got DJ Moore, pick 25. Keenan Allen, pick 47. Rome Odunze, pick 59. Wow. Those ADPs are kind of egregious when you think about a rookie quarterback. But then we realize that Caleb Williams has a historic supporting cast for a first overall pick. My favorite example is the draft was in Detroit this past season. If we harken back all the way back to 2016 when Jared Goff was taken with the first pick by the Rams in 2016. He's with the Lions now. That's why we did the reference to Detroit in the draft. Anyway, when Jared Goff joined that Rams team, there were no players on that team, zero, who had an 800 receiving yard season going into 2016. Zero. Caleb Williams joins a Bears team that has 12 of those seasons combined from DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, and they just took Rome Odunze with the 9th pick in the draft. I think we have to throw out a lot of our rookie metrics for quarterbacks for Caleb Williams because of how good the supporting cast is. And I think we should also assume DJ Moore or Keenan Allen or Rome Odunze gets injured. And if you have one or two of the other guys, they will pop. That is sort of how I like to view this, because if you simply go off of projections, you would have zero exposure to the Bears. You'd have zero exposure to the Texans. Do we really want to fully fade those teams? I'm not going to. I don't think we should. I assume you, the listener, don't want to. But if you do, best of luck. Those would be two terrifying teams for me to fully fade. We're about to be back on the clock in one pick. Let me take a coffee sip, and then we'll discuss our options. All right, we've got Gibbs and ETNs. We've got Garrett Wilson and Higgins. We have Jets, Lions, Jaguars, Bengals. Those are 4 good jumping off points. Unfortunately, Christian Kirk went at pick 50. That's a little bit early for him. His ADP is 55. It looks like someone is listening and they do not want us to get Jaguar stacks. That's okay. I think we could go Kyle Pitts here at tight end. We could also go Jaden Reed. That's another team I have a lot of exposure to, is the Packers. I'm kind of waffling between the two. Packers and you know what? We're going to go with Kyle Pitts. By far the best tight end on the board right now. We might get Jaden Reed in 2 picks because remember, we have the 5'11s. Now we get the 6'02. Yoshi already took Travis Kelce as I'm looking. This is why I shouldn't stream and draft. Apparently, I'm not qualified because if I saw that he already had a tight end, I would have gone Jaden Reed. Folks, we are now in anxiety hour. Will he take Jaden Reed? I think my next choice would either be Rome Odunze or Marquise Brown. Just receivers that I like. Marquise Brown has a good target earning profile. He plays with Patrick Mahomes. Rome Odunze was the 9th overall pick. He has pretty much no weakness. My player comp for him was faster Allen Robinson. And if you want to know my thoughts on all these rookies, I have detailed rookie rankings, color-coded. I have cheat sheets. It's all free. Just go to my Twitter at JLarkyTweets, send me a DM or look for the link in my bio, and you'll be able to access those rankings with player write-ups. I'd recommend it. I think it's very, very helpful. It complements a lot of the stuff that you're going to see from Player Profiler for all the subscribers out there. And again, it's just another free resource. Jaden Reed, Rome Odunze. I think because I talked about Jaden Reed so much, we're just going to stick with him and take him. Nope, just kidding. We're going to take Rome Odunze because I talked about how we shouldn't get too overly concerned with base projections, and we should assume DJ Moore or Keenan Allen gets injured. That's what we're going to assume here. I also just like Caleb Williams' ADP. He goes well after Jordan Love. Jordan Love at 87. Caleb Williams half a round later at 94. Caleb Williams, better supporting cast, much more mobility. So even though I really like the Packers offense, I actually think in a vacuum, Caleb is a better pick at his ADP. So we're going to set ourselves up for that. I'm just going to throw some of these quarterbacks in the queue so I can remember potential stacking partners. We have Burrow with Higgins. We've got Caleb Williams with Rome Odunze. We've got Jared Goff with Jahmyr Gibbs. We'll throw Trevor Lawrence in case we were able to get a Brian Thomas or maybe look at Evan Ingram, Gabe Davis, who knows. And then we're also going to throw in Kirk Cousins for the Kyle Pitts stack and Aaron Rodgers for the Jets. So I'm just going to have these quarterbacks in my queue. We're not actually going to take those guys with our next pick, most likely because of the ADP reach. It's more just, I want to be aware of those guys. And I think that's always a good thing to do as you're trying to visualize your stacks, is having those quarterbacks in there helps you realize which other players, receivers, and whatnot that you should be targeting. So here I can look and I can go Brian Thomas, Jacksonville, Lawrence, Jacksonville. That's a great stack that I want to start making. I actually think in a vacuum, Brian Thomas feels a touch expensive. I like the Jaguars ecosystem, so I'm still going to draft him. I think Kirk and Gabe Davis are slightly better values where they're going. Brian Thomas was he led college football with 17 touchdowns this past year as a receiver. The one issue that I have with him is that the LSU offense was bananas. We had the Heisman winner, Jaden Daniels, at quarterback. He went pick 2 to the Commanders. Jaden Daniels wins the Heisman. He throws for a ton of yardage. There's Malik Neighbors there. There's Brian Thomas there, and it's hard to realize that Brian Thomas actually wasn't targeted at a lot of, like a high percentage of his routes. About 1 in 5 routes that Thomas ran, he got a target. Neighbors was close to 1 in 3. We generally want our receivers in fantasy to be targeted at least 25% of the time on their routes for high-end fantasy production, generally closer to 30% whenever possible. So Thomas down at 20% as a senior at LSU. Slight concern there. The thing that makes me not concerned, let me just quickly check my notes so I get the actual measurables right. Brian Thomas at the combine weighed in at 6'3", 209 pounds. He ran a 4.33 40-yard dash. My kind of player comp is skinny DK Metcalf. And DK Metcalf did just fine as a rookie. And I think that's kind of what we can hope for Brian Thomas. So there's some other receivers where I think I'd kind of rather in a vacuum have, this is not me being a Chargers homer for everyone that knows I like the Chargers out there, Ladd McConkey at pick 80. Awesome target earner where there's Quentin Johnston and Josh Palmer and then nothing at tight end. I think he could get a ton of targets. Scrolling down a little bit, Keon Coleman with the Bills at pick 89. I wouldn't say I love Keon Coleman's profile, but when you have access to the potential Bills #1 receiver that they spent the 33rd overall pick on at 89, I know player profilers Theo Greminger calls him beer goggles, Mike Evans, just a big contested catch type receiver who he did run a 4.6 at the combine, but when you look at his GPS tracking, he's actually a pretty fast receiver. When he did I'm trying to remember, it might have been the gauntlet drill. There were a few drills at the combine where he was one of the fastest players in that drill. So I'm not too concerned about that. I've taken him a lot whenever I take Josh Allen. And when I don't take Josh Allen, sometimes I'm just like, hey, give me some touchdown upside with Keon Coleman. Another rookie receiver I like, if we scroll down more, would be, you know what? Let's actually stop scrolling. We're going to look at Adonai Mitchell at pick 102. I think Adonai Mitchell is borderline undraftable at pick 102. If you look at my rookie rankings, again, you can get those with the write-ups, the tiered rankings, color-coded at J Larky Tweets. You will see that I have no interest. I have him ranked one spot after Troy Franklin. Adonai Mitchell's going into a low-volume pass attack with Anthony Richardson. I get he was a second-round pick, but I think he replaces Alec Pierce. Josh Downs is a much better target earner in the slot. Michael Pittman's a much better target earner. He's going to kind of bounce between the slot and outside. We have Jonathan Taylor getting a lot of touches in the backfield. He's a goal line threat. We have Anthony Richardson's legs in at the goal line. I think Adonai Mitchell's the 5th option in this offense behind Richardson, Taylor, Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, and it's a low volume pass attack. I just don't see the upside here with this type of guy. You're hoping he catches a long touchdown, I guess, but I think that's pretty thin play. I think there's just a lot of other guys that I'd much rather have. We are back on the clock in one pick. I did not take Jaden Reed. Now Christian Watson is staring me in the face. We still don't have a quarterback either. Caleb goes at 94. I think I'm going to take him at pick 86 at the 8-2. So we'll take Caleb. Another interesting one is if we want to get more stacks, we can take Swift. We're just going to go for that. We're going to quote-unquote reach on Caleb a little bit, but Swift at this point at pick 83 with ADP 88, that sounds pretty fair to me. What's nice about stacking is that when the offense hits, you're going to have 2 to 3, 4 players on the offense who also hit. So we're now going to take DeAndre Swift at pick 83. We've got Caleb Williams top of the queue. His ADP is 94. We take him 86, half a round. I don't care, folks. I don't care. What we're now going to have, and I'm very excited about this. We're going to have Caleb Williams at quarterback, stacked with DeAndre Swift at running back, catching passes, stacked with 9th overall pick Rome Odunze. We also have Jahmyr Gibbs and Travis Etienne at running back. So the running back is set. We've got 3 really good guys there. Receiver, we're going to have to start pounding receiver with some of these rookies and other upside guys at the next turn at the 9-11 and 10-02. I'm very excited. There's some good receiver options there. We'll discuss them shortly. And then Kyle Pitts at tight end. We have a guy that has a similar target earning profile to Drake London, but you get him in the 6th round. He plays tight end. He has Kirk Cousins as his quarterback. I think it's been talked to death why there was an issue with Michael Penix at pick 8 for the Falcons. The way I see it is the cliff notes for people who are just tired of hearing about how the Falcons had the worst draft, which they did. You either sign Kirk Cousins to a $180 million deal with $100 million guaranteed, and then 6 weeks later, don't draft a quarterback, or you don't take Kirk Cousins knowing that at pick 8, Michael Penix will definitely be there. He was almost never mocked in the first round. He was definitely going to be there at pick 8. If you knew you liked Michael Penix, then you simply wait and take him at pick 8. One of these decisions was terrible. The other might have been smart and could also be terrible. It's crazy. It's almost like a lose-lose. If Cousins is awesome, the Penix pick is wasted. If Penix is awesome, well, you're paying Kirk Cousins throughout Penix's rookie deal, and you can't fully take advantage of it. Terrible. Terrible. Let's now look at some more of these players on the board. Brock Bowers at pick 88. That's a little bit of a tough sell since they took Michael Mayer last year. Now, Brock Bowers was I get it. He was the 13th overall pick. He has an awesome profile. My player comp for him is a mix of Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. He's awesome after the catch. He was schemed a lot of rushing attempts in college at Georgia. At Georgia, he played 3 seasons. He was the leader in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns all 3 seasons at Georgia. That is insane. He was playing with Ladd McConkey there. So I think there's a lot to like about the profile. I just get a little bit concerned when you have Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell throwing passes. Devontae Adams is there. Jacoby Myers is there. Again, Michael Mayer is still there. He is competent. I'm not fully fading him at pick 88, but I do think there's some better options at times there. Another guy that I think is very interesting is Trey Benson. If we look at the Arizona running back room, you'll see that James Conner, I'm sharing my screen, he goes at pick 87. Trey Benson, pick 102, their 3rd round pick. I'd just straight up rather have Trey Benson. James Conner's 29. He started to look a little bit slower at times last year. Trey Benson runs in the 4.3s. I think he's kind of like a mini Nick Chubb or J.K. Dobbins type. The kind of guy that's going to have like 15 ultra efficient carries a game. Occasionally chips in a little bit in the passing game. Just an explosive runner who forced missed tackles at a crazy rate throughout college. And I love the landing spot with Kyler Murray. We like ultra fast running backs paired with mobile quarterbacks. Think about J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins has been so awesome whenever he's healthy. His efficiency's been incredible. And I think that's what we're going to get with Trey Benson, where you get the 4.3 speed with the mobile quarterback. Arizona Cardinals, I think, are a sneaky good team this year. I bet them at 13-1 odds to actually win the division. I think it's pretty much just the Niners and them in terms of the 2 teams that look scariest to me on paper right now. We are back on the clock. I think I'm just going to take Tyler Lockett here. I talked about how I'd want to get a receiver. Some of the receivers have been taken. I was hoping that I could get Mike Williams on the Jets. He just slipped. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take Tyler Lockett. Perennially underrated. Just 800 to 1,100 yards year after year after year. Geno Smith was actually a pretty good quarterback last year. A lot of the film charters really liked him. Just some offensive line injuries and things of that nature kind of held him back. And we're about to be right back on the clock. I'd like to take another receiver here, potentially. I think what I'm going to do, and this might be dangerous, I'm queuing up Gabe Davis. I think I'm going to take Trevor Lawrence here at pick 110. We've got Lawrence Etienne. That's kind of a weird battery type stack. And then I'm going to hope I can get Gabe Davis at the next pick because the receivers are pretty dried out. This is dicey, folks. This is dicey. So Gabe Davis ADP 127. We next pick at 131. But we do have Trevor Lawrence. We have the quarterback. So other teams will be less interested in taking Gabe Davis. Let's see if that works out. And before we continue, let's get a nice word from the Podfather. Just, we cannot say enough good things about Underdog Fantasy. I was at Player Profiler full-time back in 2020 when we first signed this deal. I love Underdog. For those watching the stream, I am wearing a special Hawaiian shirt, Underdog edition. Let's get it.
This episode brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has been sponsoring Player Profiler and everything we're doing here since 2020. Sign up. Use promo code UNDERWORLD for a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. 100% instant deposit match up to $100. And you're like, oh, well, everyone's on Underdog. Not true. There's plenty of people in this audience that have not yet tried out Underdog, and it's time. They're adding more sports. They're adding more contests. Like when we're heading into NFL draft season, there's the rookies and sophomores game. When you think about way too early fantasy football, that's what Underdog is. When you think about best ball, that's what Underdog is. And if you can pick players at the end of an Underdog Fantasy best ball draft that are under rostered, that few people are picking at all, and that guy, like Kyren Williams, hits, you will likely experience positive returns. All you need is that one guy at the end who no one else is rostering, and the way to find that guy is to listen to us. UnderdogFantasy.com. The promo code is Underworld. 100% deposit match up to $100 with promo code Underworld. Underdog makes everything we do possible.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Josh Larky. This is the Dominator. We are streaming a Best Ball Mania draft on Underdog Fantasy. We're going to be up in 13 picks. We have some time. One team I want to talk about is the Bengals. Their running back room is nothing. It's Zach Moss and Chase Brown. Zach Moss was actually really, really good last year. I'm pulling it up right now. Let me look at my second screen. If we look at the rush yards over expected per attempt stat that I mentioned earlier with Kyren Williams, it's one of my favorites because it's player tracking data and looking at a per attempt basis, how good were players. Zach Moss was 5th last year behind Devon Achane, Christian McCaffrey, Jalen Warren, and James Conner in terms of how they were calculating rush yards over expected per attempt. That's incredible. I didn't realize James Conner was quite that high. Hopefully for Trey Benson's sake, he is not that same guy at 29. I don't think he will be. He looked pretty slow at times down the stretch at the end of the season. Anyway, Zach Moss was actually awesome as a runner last year when Jonathan Taylor was hurt. And Zach Moss did that on a lot of carries. We're going to pull that up as well. Let me look on my other screen. Zach Moss last year for carries had 183. That's not a negligible amount of rush attempts. And then we have Chase Brown, ultra athletic, day 3 rookie from last year, good pass catcher. I'm not quite sure which one of these guys hits, but I'm pretty confident at least one of these guys hits at ADP. Zach Moss, ADP 101, Chase Brown, ADP 118. I think, especially if you're going 0 RB, that's a great place to start. Either your first or second running back is one of those Bengals guys. You can even take both because their roles could be so different, where Zach Moss is in a lot of first and second downs. He's kind of the grinder back, not as polished of a pass catcher. Chase Brown, more of that explosive pass catching type. And suddenly, depending on the week, one of those guys hits. Occasionally, both of them score a touchdown. But I think that's a really, really strong start to a 0 RB team, is one of those two guys. We are back on the clock. We can take out the quarterbacks that I was queuing up before because we have Caleb and Lawrence. I'm going to go with Gabe Davis. Folks, this is awesome. We got him after ADP. We are now going to have 2 double stacks. We're going to have Caleb Williams stacked with DeAndre Swift and Rome Odunze. So a little quarterback, running back, receiver. And then with the Jaguars, quarterback, running back, receiver, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Gabe Davis. Talked about 2 teams I liked early in the show. Those were 2 of them. Now we officially have stacked them up well, let's see how it goes. One player who just went that I want to discuss is Ricky Pearsall. He just went at pick 130. His ADP is 139. So you could say that's a reach. I don't think it's a reach. I think Pearsall should go earlier. We'll talk about him in just a second. So the 2 guys I've been taking a lot in this range, we're going to take one of them. It's Xavier Legette and Ricky Pearsall. So I'm going to take Leggett at pick 134. His ADP is 140. Pearsall went at pick 130. His ADP is 139. Essentially, we are looking at 2 first-round receivers going in the late 130, 140 range. And with Ricky Pearsall, it's not obvious how he fits in on day one. They have Ayuk, they have Debo, they have Kittle, they have McCaffrey, they even have Jawan Jennings. We see every year 49ers players get injured. Players in general get injured. I think there's a really good shot Pearsall finds playing time just through injury and pops whenever he's on the field. He's a guy that can win in the slot. He can win outside. He ran a 4.4 at 6'1", 190. So he's got good size. He's got good speed. He has an awesome vertical. It's been talked to death, but he does have the best catch of the college football season last year. If you haven't seen it yet, just type in Ricky Pearsall catch into Google. It'll come up. One-handed snag in traffic. Whew, beautiful. So Ricky Pearsall, I like. We could also see Debo or Ayuk just get traded. Xavier Leggett, God, that was a terrible pick. That was a terrible pick by the Panthers. A guy that never had more than 167 receiving yards through 4 college seasons, despite being like 6'1", 220 and running a high 4.3s. He's basically, he looks like A.J. Brown athletically, maybe even better than A.J. Brown athletically, but doesn't break out for the first 4 years. Then he has this massive season in year 5 at South Carolina. South Carolina is not the most premier talent organization. When you look at his 167 receiving yards as a senior before his 5th year breakout, as a senior, he was 10th at South Carolina in receiving yards. I understand the upside. I understand that he has this crazy backstory where he's overcome so much, but still analytically, he has to be the outlier of outliers to be just this awesome, awesome, awesome fantasy asset. I think the Panthers messed up by trading up to pick 32 to take him. That being said, there's pretty much no risk in the 130s with these players. We just need a few big games from him. I think Leggett can give you that because he's got incredible speed. And new head coach of the Panthers, Dave Canales, has a pretty remarkable track record the past 2 seasons. He, 2 years ago, resurrected Geno Smith's career with the Seahawks. And then last year, he resurrected Baker Mayfield's career with the Buccaneers. I think he's got his work cut out for him with the infrastructure of the Panthers. But still, Bryce Young can't be a competent quarterback. He did get picked first overall last year. Veteran Adam Thielen had 100 catches. He's still there. We've got Xavier Leggett getting injected at pick 32. Veteran target earning wide receiver Deontay Johnson is there. They even took tight end Jatavian Sanders, who was a star at Texas the past 2 seasons in college. They took him in the 4th. There's a lot going on there. Canales might be able to get the best of him. I'm just going to take Leggett and Pearsall as pretty much auto picks in this 130s range. I think they should be going at pick 110, 115 at least. And one other thing is the draft capital on Ricky Pearsall, the draft capital on Xavier Leggett, very surprising. I don't think people really expected them to go round 1. I think people thought they'd go round 2. If you want to see how you should be valuing them in Dynasty now, if you want to be trading for picks, whatever you're trying to do, I do not have Dynasty rankings out right now. I have my rookie rankings. I have my player write-ups, the cheat sheets for your rookie drafts this weekend. Those are free. Check those out at J Larky Tweets. If you want Dynasty rankings, though, all of you do probably. Anyone listening probably plays in Dynasty leagues. I play in a lot of them. Playerprofiler.com. Make sure you sign up for Dynasty Deluxe if you want to see the player lifetime values of guys like Ricky Pearsall, Xavier Leggett, guys that got surprisingly good draft capital. See them move up. Guy like Adonai Mitchell, who gets neutered going to the Colts. See him move down. Watch Kyron Williams move down because of Blake Corum. There's a lot of movement, as there should be post-NFL draft. Make sure you're checking out the Dynasty Rankings, playerprofiler.com. Do it. We are about to be back on the clock, folks. Right now, we can kind of go anywhere, except for quarterback, I think. We've got Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence there. I may take a third at the end of the draft. We've got Jahmyr Gibbs, Travis Etienne, DeAndre Swift there. We've got 3 awesome running backs. We've got Kyle Pitts at tight end, so we could always add a tight end there. And then at receiver, we've got Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Rome Odunze, Tyler Lockett, Gabe Davis, Xavier Leggett. That's a good 6. I love this type of balanced roster in terms of the flexibility it gives you to make picks now. And I think I'm just going to queue up Roman Wilson. I'm on the clock. Third round pick to the Steelers. One of my pre-draft comps was Deontay Johnson light. And he goes to the Steelers. The Steelers trade away Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson, third round pick. Roman Wilson, third round pick. Low volume offense at Michigan where he played. The production profile won't blow you away. He did run in the 4.3s at around 6 foot, 190 pounds. That's very exciting. That's kind of what we want to see. And I'm just going to take a chance here. I think this Steelers offense with the remade offensive line, with Arthur Smith coming in as offensive coordinator, who was actually a very good offensive coordinator with the Titans. He just didn't happen to be a good coach with the Falcons. I have optimism there. I think Russell Wilson's certifiably not washed. Let me pull up his stats quickly. Let me just look at this on the back end for a second. Russell Wilson had 26 touchdown passes to only 8 interceptions last year. That doesn't seem like a guy that's completely dead to me. Roman Wilson looks like a fun pick. George Pickens, a good pick. Pat Freiermuth, a good pick. I'm starting to become in on this Steelers offense. Even the running backs, I think Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, they're both palatable at ADP. We're back on the clock now. I'm not a huge K. Dotton or Hunter Henry guy at tight end. I think Hunter Henry's my preferred pick just because he's got Drake May. I don't love these options here. I'm going to queue up Jermaine Burton, Bengals receiver. And the reason for that is he was taken in the 3rd round, so there's reasonable draft capital. I already have T. Higgins on this roster. The way I see it is if T. Higgins has a dud game or misses a week due to injury, that could be a Jermaine Burton week. So I'm trying to insulate where I get my spike weeks and making sure that I kind of sequence my spike weeks to always have them. And I'm pretty happy with this receiver room. We might just be done with 8 receivers. And that kind of feels good to not have to worry about receiver. I mentioned how towards the end of your draft, receiver looks terrifying. And now I just don't have to worry about that. There's a ton of really good running back options later in the draft. There's some really good tight end options later in the draft. My receiver room as of now, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Rome Odunze. We've got kind of a big 3 early on there. Tyler Lockett, Gabe Davis, Xavier Legette, Roman Wilson, Jermaine Burton. None of those guys feel like zeros. They all feel like they can do something for my team. There's a chance we'll sneak in a 9th receiver. I think we'll probably just stop there. That feels pretty good. And then quarterback, we'll probably take a 3rd quarterback. Maybe not. Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, that might be good enough. Running back, we're going to go with a 5 running back build since we already have Jahmyr Gibbs and Travis Etienne with early draft capital. DeAndre Swift with kind of middle draft capital on my team. So we'll probably take 2 more, ideally upside rookies to round out the running back room. Tight end, we'll go with 1, maybe 2 more with Kyle Pitts already there. I'm going to queue up Jonnu Smith and Tyler Conklin at tight end. Might take them with my next picks. One of those guys to pair with Pitts, and I think I'm done. Jonnu Smith last year, 50 catches, 582 yards, 3 touchdowns in a low-volume Falcons offense. He now goes to the Dolphins. A lot of excitement there. Tyler Conklin, as I mentioned earlier, 3 straight seasons with 87 targets. Career high 621 receiving yards last year. He just didn't catch a touchdown. Pretty confident. Yeah, pretty confident he'll do that with Aaron Rodgers. So I think Tyler Conklin's a great target late. Let's look now at the running backs. Kamani Vidal, Chargers running back. He's going to be a massive target of mine. 6th round pick. We don't love the draft capital. We do love that J.K. Dobbins hasn't been much of a pass catcher at the NFL level. Gus Edwards has literally been a 0 as a pass catcher at the NFL level. We like Justin Herbert. And one other thing that I've talked about this on other podcasts. I don't believe the Dominator's heard this yet, since this is still a relatively new show. A lot of running back targets is a running back who's good enough to catch passes paired with a bad receiving core. Let's think about this logically to understand why this would make sense data-wise. Quarterback's looking, the receivers aren't getting open, they're not very good, so he dumps it off to the running back. Bingo. There it is. Ladd McConkey's the only premier target earner on the Chargers, and he's still a 2nd-round rookie. Someone like Kamani Vidal could get a lot of action. We're going to queue him up. We're going to queue up Bucky Irving, where Bucky Irving's small and slow. That's not... damn it. Kamani Vidal goes a little early. Shit. Bucky Irving, who I just started to talk about, goes early. People might be listening to the stream. What the hell is going on? I'm panicking. We're up in 6 picks. Bucky Irving, he's small and slow, which I don't like, but he was a mega producer at Oregon. A lot of rushing yards, a lot of receiving yards. I believe he had over 50 catches this past year too. And Rachaad White's kind of the only guy on the depth chart. I think Rachaad White and Bucky Irving should be heavy best ball targets for everyone, since there's just nothing there in that running back room. All right, folks, we're starting to lose some of our running back targets. I feel like people are listening to the stream. It's annoying me. Why do I even stream with this bankroll? We are just hemorrhaging cash if I stream these drafts. Kidding. We've got some stacks. I'm going to queue up Khalil Herbert. Now, Khalil Herbert is rumored to be on the trade block because the Bears have Swift and Roschon Johnson at running back. You might be like, well, you already have Swift. What's going on with Herbert? I think Herbert gets traded. Here's the sneakiest fit. Here's the sneakiest quote unquote hot take I'm going to give on this podcast. If Khalil Herbert is traded to the Cowboys, he's a fantasy RB2. I think that could very well happen. Khalil Herbert's a hard-nosed runner. Anytime he's healthy, he's been really, really good. He's been efficient. Right now, we've got everyone from the queue is evaporating. We've got Tyler Conklin and Khalil Herbert remaining. Oh boy, we're up in 2 picks. People are clearly listening to the stream. I'm going to try and get Khalil Herbert at the 15-11 and then Tyler Conklin at the 16-2. Perfect. 16-2 is coming up. We're going to take Khalil Herbert there. That's going to be one away from finishing our running back room. Yoshi has Travis Kelce and Juwan Johnson at tight end. I'm looking. So I don't think he's going to take a tight end. So we're going to wait and take Herbert first, see what he takes at the 15-12 and 16-1. So that's all very good. We've got Herbert on the squad. Fingers crossed he doesn't do something weird and take Conklin. I think there's a drop off to some of these other tight end options. So hopefully we can get Conklin here. If for some reason he takes Conklin, I will be very, very confused for his team building philosophy. He took Geno Smith at quarterback. This is anxiety hour. We already lost Bucky Irving. We already lost Jonnu Smith. Everyone's going off the board. We lost Kamani Vidal. All the players I like, other people seem to like. 13 seconds, folks. I'm just so anxious I can't even podcast right now. We're just... Yoshi, don't fuck me. He takes Antonio Gibson. We get Tyler Conklin. That is what we like to see. We are going to have a lot of team correlation in addition to our stacks with this pick. I'm going to go over the team one more time. And before I do that, I'm going to talk about why stacking is so important, just conceptually. So conceptually, and then we will also hit the chat. We've got some comments coming in on the chat. We'll see what the chat is saying. They might be enjoying my panicking. With stacking, what you're kind of saying is I want to bet on this offense. And that's generally a better bet than betting on players in a way where sometimes players can get injured. Things can happen. But generally, we know which offenses we like. I'd be shocked if the Chiefs aren't a good offense next year. I'd be shocked if the Packers aren't good next year in offense. I'd be shocked if the Jaguars and Bears, who I've been stacking, don't have competent offenses next year. It's very, very difficult to see those offenses floundering. Yeah, individual players in that offense might not hit ADP, but overall, I think there's going to be several players from those offenses that meet or exceed ADP expectations. The other benefit of a stack is it's just too easy in terms of you can double count touchdowns. Let's think about it like this, where I have Trevor Lawrence and Gabe Davis right now stacked. If I told you that if I told you Trevor Lawrence throws a touchdown pass on Sunday, and I said, Trevor Lawrence just threw a touchdown pass, do you think that someone random, do you think Amon-Ra St. Brown caught a touchdown? I'd say, well, I don't know. Why would you ask about Amon-Ra St. Brown? There's a 0% chance he can catch a touchdown from Trevor Lawrence. That doesn't matter. But if I told you Trevor Lawrence throws a touchdown and then we have Gabe Davis on our team and I say, hey, what do you think there is? Like a 1 in 4 chance Gabe Davis caught that touchdown. Suddenly we're like, wow. Suddenly there's a 1 in 4 chance that we get 4 points for the passing touchdown for Trevor Lawrence, 6 points for the receiving touchdown from Gabe Davis. That's 10 fantasy points on our best ball team purely from that 1 touchdown pass. And we can add in the yardage to our fantasy points. It's awesome. We love it. We love it. That is why we stack. I'll go over my team, then we'll answer questions in the chat. We've got Caleb Williams stacked with DeAndre Swift at running back. I also have Khalil Herbert at running back there. I think he might get traded. If not, Swift could be the pass catcher. Herbert could be the early and down back for the Bears. I don't just hate that in general. We also have Ninth overall pick, Rome Odunze, stacked from the Bears. Jaguars, I've got Trevor Lawrence paired with Travis Etienne at running back and Gabe Davis at wide receiver. Other correlations we have. So we have Jahmyr Gibbs. He's just kind of floating there from the Lions. And then at receiver, we've got T. Higgins and Jermaine Burton from the Bengals. We have Tyler Lockett floating from the Seahawks. We have Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin catching passes from Aaron Rodgers. And we have Xavier Legette floating from the Panthers. Took him at pick 134. He was a round one wide receiver in the NFL draft. On a Panthers depth chart that's just open for business. We like that. And then Roman Wilson. I talked about why I like the Steelers right now. Roman Wilson looks like a little bit of Deontay Johnson taken in the third round by the Steelers. They have no wide receiver 2 of note. It's Pickens, and then it's probably Roman Wilson. Let's turn to the chat. GDLT gave me a few thumbs up and a few footballs. Thank you. Hodo Prime said Vidal is getting comps to DeAndre Swift. Hodo, what are you doing? I'm already frustrated. I couldn't get Kamani Vidal with my pick. Now we're hearing DeAndre Swift comps. Oh my goodness. Vidal is an incredible pass blocker. He handled heavy volume on the ground at Troy in college. And he caught, oh God, we're just going to pull it up so I don't flub this. I want to say Kamani Vidal, top of my head, caught 92 balls in his college career. Do I have, yes, he caught 92 balls for 700 yards. This is the problem with working in the industry is this is what I think about at night constantly. I can't stop thinking. Ugh. Kamani Vidal. Wish I got him. Timothy Bell asked about Tyrone Tracy. That's a great one. Tyrone Tracy right now, his ADP is 203. He went, if I remember correctly, pick 166. I think it was pick 166 to the holy nuts. Wow, I'm getting too hyped. Pick 166, I believe, to the Giants in like the 5th or 6th round. He kind of looks like Antonio Gibson light. Slightly slower, touch smaller, but converted wide receiver to running back. And then he just forced missed tackles. He was awesome. Big, fast guy. The Giants really just have Devin Singletary. I think Tyrone Tracy is a great target for Dynasty, a great target for best ball as well. I'm about to be back on the clock, and then we'll check out these other comments. But I will say from Flatulent Fantasy, this one's funny. Everybody panic in all caps. That must have been when I was actually panicking. Thanks, Flatulent. That's appreciate that. That's the guy who bought Dario and I shots actually during the NFL draft last week. Thank you very much for that. I believe it was Flatulent who tipped us. All right, we're back on the clock. I've got to make a pick right now. We have no time to make this pick. We got 1 second. I just threw in Will Shipley into the queue. We're back on the clock in 2 picks. The running back room is done. We've got Will Shipley, Eagles, handcuff to Saquon Barkley. Good runner. Awesome pass catcher at Clemson. For this final pick, we've got 2 quarterbacks, 5 running backs, 8 receivers, 2 tight ends. We can kind of go anywhere with this final pick. I'd rather not go running back. We could take Will Levis, or we could take Bryce Young, maybe, to stack with Xavier Legette. That's kind of fun. At receiver, I don't see too much excitement. We're just going to skip that. Tight end, it's a little barren. We might just take Bryce Young here and say that it's a 3 quarterback build. I think a tight end could score some points here. We could take Jatavian Sanders as well. No, I'm not sure. Should we take the rookie to pair with Xavier Legette? Or should we trust our quarterbacks? We're just going to take Bryce Young. I think there's some safety in the 3 quarterback build. I hope Kyle Pitts and Tyler Conklin just carry the team. That's what we got there. This team is now finished. Caleb Williams stacked with Swift and maybe Khalil Herbert and Rome Odunze. Trevor Lawrence with Gabe Davis and Travis Etienne. And then Bryce Young with first round rookie, 32nd overall pick, Xavier Legette. We got some stacks. We cannot be bummed about that outcome. Randall Ducat said people are definitely listening. He wants to know about Wandale. I don't have much to say about Wandale that's positive. I don't have much to say that's negative. I think he's fine. Just a barren, wide open Giants depth chart after their 6th overall pick, Malik Neighbors, who should be the clear target earner number 1 there. Yeah, I just don't quite know how it's going to play out with Wandale, who seemed to lead the team in targets when he was healthy last year, but that's now Neighbors. The problem is their low average depth of targets, which I don't like in a half PPR format, where if you catch 6 passes for 40 yards, that's 10 points in PPR. That's 7 points in half PPR. That said, I think he can be the number 2 target there behind Neighbors. So I think he's fine at ADP. Klepter said, I know your voice from the podcast, but not sure of your name. Then he said, never mind, I see it on the screen. LOL, all caps. I'm Josh Larky. This is the Dominator. Thank you, Klepter. He's asking, are your Superflex rankings, quote unquote, rookie based off 10 or 12 team league? They work for either. It doesn't really matter too much if it's a 10 or 12 team league. I have I have my rankings in order. I have them kind of set up in the cheat sheets for 12 team leagues where it's picks 1 through 12. Then we go to round 2, picks 1 through 12 in round 2, etc. You can easily use these for 10 team leagues. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Klepter. UPPR management said, shout out to the analytics team. Yes. Shout out to the analytics team. Dario and I took a shot while we were discussing projections on stream. That was my 3rd shot in 15 minutes on stream. I didn't feel great after that. Really didn't feel great. So, yeah, we just completed the draft. I'm going to pull it back up in a second, and then we will look at the draft board. If I can figure out how to do that. There we go. Let's bring that back in for a second. We're going to go over, thank you, Klepter, for that comment. Folks, if there's any team, post in the chat if there's any team that you want me to break down aside from my own. I've talked about that team a lot. I'm just going to scroll through really quickly and just find a couple players that I want to discuss from the rookie perspective. I'm looking for Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks, his ADP is starting to correct. He went at pick 93. I think that's a good range. His ADP a couple days ago when I last checked was actually after Trey Benson. I like Trey Benson, as I talked about. I would rather have Jonathan Brooks. I think Brooks should be going at like pick 60. I think Chuba Hubbard is fine. I think Miles Sanders is meh. Jonathan Brooks should be healthy to start the season coming off the ACL tear. As I mentioned, I think the Panthers offense is going to be much improved. At Texas this past year was a great runner and a great receiver. Only 1 year of production, then he tore his ACL, so there's risk in his profile. There's a touch of concern for Dynasty because of that. However, in a 1 year sample for redraft, I think he can handle the load. He can probably do it. This was the most well-rounded running back profile in the NFL draft. And you might say, why did he only produce as a junior? What about his freshman and sophomore seasons? Well, first off, we do like that he's a junior, early declare. The NFL liked him as a young player and said, just come to the NFL draft. We'll take you early. And the first 2 seasons, he was playing behind Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson at Texas. That is why. Let me quickly scan, and I've got a couple more questions in the chat. Other guys I want to discuss. Let's discuss Jalen Wright. We'll discuss him, then we'll answer the chat questions and we'll sign off. So what I like about Jalen Wright, you might say like, oh, you took a 3rd string running back at pick 142 for JCashF username on Underdog. What, pick 142? Great pick, JCashF. Jalen Wright, yes, he is 3rd on the depth chart in Miami. He only got 4th round draft capital, but Devon Achane was their 3rd round pick last year. He's tiny. He's awesome. He is legally allowed to get injured at his size and with his play style. Raheem Mostert's turning 32 years old, if not already turned 32. He's pretty much like the oldest, like quote unquote, starting running back in the league by like half a decade at this point in terms of age wise. Mostert had a career high in touches this past year. And that doesn't bode well for what he's going to see next year. Running backs coming off of heavy volume the year before often struggle the next year. So suddenly we have injury risk. Devon Achane, just with his size, his play style. Raheem Mostert has a long documented history of injuries, of missing significant time. In steps Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. He ran in the high 4.3s at the combine. That's incredible. 210-ish pounds. So that's a great size speed combination. Very efficient runner, efficient pass catcher. We should like that in this high flying Dolphins offense. Let's check out the chat now. Are you Utah based or do you just enjoy the Narrows hike? Yeah, I have a poster of that. I just enjoyed the Narrows hike a lot. I'm currently in Denver, Colorado. Thanks, Timothy. Klepter asking, what do you think of Dobbins this year? All right, let's try to find where Dobbins went. Oh, there we go. So Dobbins went at pick 164. I don't remember his ADP off the top of my head. It's probably in that range somewhere, probably in the 150s, 160s, 170s. I think Dobbins is a fine pick simply because we like Justin Herbert. We like Jim Harbaugh as the head coach. It's going to be a run forward offense. Gus Edwards is a good early down plotting committee back. He's good there. And then we have Kamani Vidal, 6th-round pick. Can handle carries, is a decent pass blocker, is a decent pass catcher. I like him. I'm taking a lot of shots on him, but again, it's still a 6th-round pick. J.K. Dobbins has the best pedigree of this bunch. It's actually kind of humorous in a way that they're sort of remaking the Ravens running back room, but just like several years later with the Chargers having Dobbins and Edwards. Dobbins is coming off the Achilles. The track record for running backs being good off this injury is almost none. He did have like 4.3 speed, ultra athlete prior to this injury. He's dealt with a lot. Maybe he's fine. I've heard his recovery is going pretty well. I'm willing to take some shots just because of his pedigree and him playing with Justin Herbert, him lining up behind Justin Herbert in the backfield, and then him having Jim Harbaugh as head coach. Hoda Prime said that Achane bulked up some because he's no longer running track. I've seen that as well. Still a small player, still undersized. Maybe he's closing in on 200 pounds. Maybe he's a 195. I certainly hope he's bulking up. That there's still ultimately just risk with a guy that size. Klepter said if Dobbins doesn't get hurt, they're going to run him into the ground. Maybe. It's just the track record of Achilles injuries is what concerns me. But I do think there's upside where you look at Dobbins and he gets 250 carries this year, 220 carries. I think that is possible at a late ADP with an awesome offensive line. The Chargers had Rashawn Slater at left tackle. They took Joe Alt for right tackle at pick 5 in the draft. This is a terrifying offensive line. We love it. We love it for these running backs. Randall asked if I did any mini schnauzers. I've done a lot of those. Those are the $3 drafts on Underdog. So if you're a little bit scared of that price point of $25 for Best Ball Mania, I'm not going to shame you for it. I'll say, hey, how about $3? Mini schnauzers. I've already done, I think, 7, 8 of those. That tournament's almost full. There's going to be the puppy coming out in a few days. The puppy is a $5 tournament, another super affordable price range. So if you're like, hey, I want to do 2 or 3 $25 Best Ball Manias, but I really want to do a lot of cheap leagues, the mini schnauzer, $3, the puppies, $5. There's a lot of great options on Underdog Fantasy. Klepter, I do not have any listener leagues right now, maybe at some point. Folks, before I sign off, Josh Larky, the Dominator, J Larky tweets on Twitter for my rookie rankings for the player write-ups. Underdog Fantasy, the promo code is Underworld. Get that deposit match. Support Player Profiler. They support me. We love Player Profiler. We love Underdog Fantasy. And check out those Dynasty rankings on playerprofiler.com. Figure out where the post-draft movement has been. Figure out who the risers are, who the fallers are with the lifetime values. That is all, folks. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday. You can find me, Fun Guy Hates Stats username, in those Best Ball Underdog streets.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.